cost of college. Is it worth it? Um, there's so many students that come out with so much debt and all of that. You went to a pretty prestigious school. If you had to advise other young girls, do you think that it is worth it for everybody, for most people? How do you feel? Are there other paths, do you think, in today's environment that might be better having lived that experience?
Oh, I think there are a million paths. It's not going to be worth it for everybody. It's not what everybody wants. It's not the skill set that everybody, is looking for their path in life. I mean, for me, it was amazing and wonderful, and I wouldn't have done it differently. But that's not going to be the same for everyone. So I think that people just need to take a look at what they want and need and, make that decision for themselves. But the idea that everybody has to go to college to be a contributing member of society just isn't right.
Okay, and that leads into the next part that I had. I know there's an important section that Doug wants to get to, but you go to college, yes, to round out your life, to gain the things that you gain from that experience, but you also do it to prepare for a career, as we discussed. What about your career? Tell us, what was your first job? Did you have any jobs before you went to college? And when you got out, what was your first job when you got out of school?
Well, I started babysitting when I was 12, so I've been working forever. And my first job, actually, when I was in college, I started working, summers and breaks at a company here in town that insures classic cars, and I love cars. So then after college, I moved to London for a little while, and they were opening up a London branch, so I ended up kind of hanging out with them there, and then came back to America in 2005, and, I stayed with that company. I was just an executive assistant, I was an executive assistant. And then I went out to California, and I worked in a startup, and I did a couple different things, and then just sort of fell into this writing gig.
Okay. Is that what you thought you were going to be doing? I mean, not the car thing, but you took English. Were you always I don't know what the right way to say that. Were you always envisioning a career that involved writing, and specifically, what kind of writing?
Well, I was always certainly hoping for a career that involved writing. I guess I thought that practically speaking, it was probably going to be more like working in an office somewhere, either, internal communications or company newsletters or something like that. I forgot the other half of your question.
No, I mean, what did you consider as possible career paths? Did you see yourself as a novelist? Did you always have that interest in politics, that you were going to be a commentator? Okay. We mentioned at the beginning, and we're going to get to this at the end, you've written children's books. Was that something you wanted to do, education of children? I mean, there's a lot of aspects to writing. I did technical writing for a long time, what I thought I was going to spend my life doing. What did you see yourself writing?
Well, I mean, really, I just wanted to write. My dream was probably to be a novelist, and maybe there still is a novel in me. But really, I knew that not many people can make a living writing. So really, the dream was, if I can make a living writing anything, and the fact that I get to work writing for stuff that's meaningful for me, and I feel like potentially makes a difference, it's really rewarding.
All right. Well, Doug wants to get to the dirty part of the conversation, so he's going to bring in the P word.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the P word. Yeah, and actually, this is a question I ask a lot of the people that you and I probably know pretty well through social media and stuff like that when I have a chance. How the heck did you get involved in politics?
Well, I didn't mean to. When it happened accidentally. When I was in Scotland, I was there for both Bush elections, for the start of the Iraq War, and aside from that, just being in a place, with the socialized medicine, education is very different. I just kind of saw what comes next if you travel a certain path. And as much as I love Scotland and my heart is there's definitely a part of me that's still there. I don't think that's what's best. I was ready to come home at the end of 6 years. And it was hard for me to wrap my head around, things like socialized medicine, which I think is like the most impressive piece of propaganda I've ever seen. The fact that people actually like it over there, but that's a whole different tangent. And I just started tweeting, and then people started saying, we liked what you tweeted. Would you like to blog about it? And then people started saying, we like what you blogged about. Can we pay you to blog about it? And now here we are on this famous podcast.
Yeah, and hopefully your career will survive.
That's up in the air. That'll be found out later.
So I mean, were you? I mean, it sounds like you're saying you really didn't consider yourself very political per se before college then.
No, not at all. I was always conservative. I always had those values, but I don't think I realized I don't even know how to explain this. I don't think I realized how conservative that was. I don't think I realized, in Europe especially, things go very much the other way, and things that seemed like common sense to me were radical there.
Was there any sort of a culture shock between growing up in the family you grew up in the neighborhood and going over there? You described growing up in a fairly conservative Christian environment, very work-oriented environment, and then going over and experiencing, your big example was the socialized medicine. Was there sort of a culture shock between those two worlds?
There was, but I went from a small town to a small town. There were a lot of international students that were kind of all in the same boat of not being able to, go home for the weekend or anything. So I would go home, with friends. I have, actually the woman who was behind me in line of matriculation is still one of my best friends, and I spent breaks with her family, and you just kind of, I think in some ways things like that were easier because I couldn't go home, so I just had to kind of figure it out and get on with it.
You make no secret of the fact, when we've been joking around in the past, that you're single, and I think you're kind of like some other friends of mine that I have that are younger, and to borrow the title of somebody else's book, Looking for Mr. Righteous. I'm just curious. There was another article I read recently, and there's a pair of them. One of them was at Salon. Don't sue me for saying Salon on the show. That talked about the number of people in the country from a recent Gallup poll who were so ideologically oriented that they wouldn't want to see their child marry someone from the opposite party or from a different political ideology. Can you combine those two aspects of your life, your professional preferences and those things, and the ideal quest looking for love, which I engaged in myself and fortunately was, very fortunate in that area. Could you see yourself being in a relationship with somebody who was really like just a hardcore leftist, but otherwise, was a good guy?
No. No. I think that, your values and your worldview, at least for me, there's so much a part of who I am, and I don't understand. I mean, I know that people make it work, but I don't know how you raise children. I don't know what you teach them. And I mean, in my experience, liberals don't want to date conservatives either, because we're all terrible people. And I think that you should know that by now.
I don't know, Doug. I wonder if that's a generational thing, because you know my wife, and she is a hardcore feminist Democrat. She went to an all-women's college, studied feminist studies, and we've somehow made it work for 20 years, and I'm extremely happy.
Well, I would be happy to be proven wrong.
I don't know. I wanted to get your take on that because it has been a subject of discussion. We're going to leave that because we're getting close to the end and we're running out of time. And I want to get to what you're doing now. You have 2 children's books published already, and we're going to leave the novel hidden in the desk thing for the moment. Tell us a little bit about those books, and more specifically, why did you want to go and address children's books as a field of writing?
Again, that was sort of a thing that I didn't intend to do. It just kind of happened. My friend had a little boy that I was very close with, and when he was learning how to count, I just decided for his birthday I would write him a counting book. And other parents loved it and wanted copies, and I started hearing from people about the problems in public education and how kids aren't learning about just fundamental American ideals. So I ended up publishing the first book, and it did well. And then I published a second book about the revolution, and now I blog about education. It just kind of happened.
Are you working on any more right now? Books, I mean?
I am working on a third book.
And it's another children's book?
It is, yep.
Okay, well, then we are going to put links to where people can find your books, where we post the show. And additionally, I should say, upcoming right after, or actually right before Thanksgiving, at Hot Air, I don't know what Doug and his folks over at Outside the Beltway are doing, but we're going to have a Christmas guide for conservative gifts, and we will feature you there. And we would like to thank you very much for being the inaugural guest on Politinerds Radio. Thank you very much, Amelia Hamilton.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for putting up with both of us.
Yes, I know it was a chore.
It's my cross to bear.
And you bore it very well. Thank you very much. And we'll be back next week. Thanks, guys.
This show is copyright by VLR Media. All opinions of hosts, panelists, and guests are their own and may not reflect the opinion of VLR Media or anyone else.